Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this exclusive discussion on redefining your talent acquisition technology stack, the what and how. My name is Megha. I'm from the People Matters team, and I will be your host for this afternoon session. Welcome to this discussion that is brought to you in partnership with People Strong under a campaign that we've launched, which is called HR Tech That Matters. This online talk will focus on how talent leaders today are leveraging technology not just for efficiency, but to redesign the role of recruiters for more strategic partnership with business. So here's what we'll cover today. So we're going to look at what are the newer technologies transforming the talent acquisition function and how are talent acquisition leaders changing the technology stack. What are some of the considerations that are kept in mind to explore newer technologies in a way that it enhances the candidate experience and also impacts the business positively. And before I move ahead to introduce our panelists, I would like to take a stop here and thank our partner People Strong for bringing in their expertise and experience in this domain to help us put this conversation together. So thank you, the entire team at People Strong. And I would also like to share a little bit about People Strong with all of you. Established in 2005, People Strong is a leading HR solutions and technology company in India, delivering cutting-edge technology-enabled HR solutions in the space of recruitment, employee lifecycle management, payroll, and compliance management and analytics. The company is enriching experience of over 175 plus customers and over 500,000 users for over a decade now. Known for its penchant to innovate, People Strong has many firsts to its name, the recent one being India's first native HR application, which aims to transform the future of work and work life across corporates and organizations. That's People Strong for you. And to introduce a panel for this discussion today, we have the privilege of having with us a very esteemed panel, and I will introduce each one of our panelists one by one. Joining us today is Naveen Narayanan, Talent Acquisition Lead for India and APAC, Publicis Sapient. Naveen has over 19 years of rich experience across HR in industries like hospitality, retail, supply chain, and banking. He has led large-scale HR change programs, quality interventions, created and deployed human capital strategies, and is also qualified in competency-based architectures. Welcome, Naveen. Thank you for joining us today. Joining Naveen is Joyita Chatterjee, Executive Vice President, Human Resources, Munch Lloyd Group. Joyita is a human resources leader with diverse industry experience of 21 years, ranging from industries like logistics, media, IT, telecom, pharmaceutical, and e-commerce. Joyita is a certified MBTI facilitator and a certified CPI 260 coach. Welcome, Joyita. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And joining the panel is Madhu Raghunath, COO, Dealership Businesses, Group Head HR and OC, TVS Division, TVS and Sons Private Limited. Madhu is responsible for the entire human resources function for the TVS and Sons Group, comprising of 3 different entities. A passionate leader at heart, Madhu has over 23 years of experience in the HR industry. Welcome, Madhu. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure joining all of you for this webinar.
Thank you. And completing the panel and taking the role of the chair of this panel discussion, we have with us Kiran Kumar, founding member and chief sales officer at People Strong. A believer in challenging conventional wisdom, charting new paths, and envisaging innovative solutions, Kiran is an entrepreneur to the core. Embarking on this exciting journey of creation in 2006, he has been a part of the founding team at People Strong and has managed multiple aspects of the business, including transitions and business development. Thank you so much, Kiran, for accepting to be the chair of this discussion, and welcome to this discussion.
Thank you, Megha. Good to be here.
Fantastic. So we have a panel set, and before I hand it over to you, Kiran, just a quick note to the audience. All of you, I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions in this entire discussion. So please feel free to use the comments section that you see. For those of you who've experienced our webcast before, so you are pretty aware of how the comment section works. But in case you're joining us for the first time, the screen where you're viewing right now, the video, if you look on your right, there's a comment section. So please feel free to pour in the questions in that section, and I'm sure the panel will try to take up as many questions as possible. We have also reserved some time dedicated to Q&A at the end of the discussion. What we will do is we'll keep on collating the questions and sharing it with Kiran so that he can pick up the questions for the panelists post the discussion. So that's how we have structured it today. And without much further ado, an exciting topic at hand and an esteemed panel with us. So over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Megha. I think I'm assuming everybody is able to hear me clearly, and we have a very exciting topic in hand. I'm personally very excited because I've been working in the recruitment and the RPO related technologies from a people strong perspective very deeply. And what is more exciting is the fellow panel members that I have on board. It's a good diverse panel that I have here. So we have Naveen, on one side, who brings in a great amount of experience from a deep technology hiring context, both in Indian and multinational industries. So Naveen would be able to, throw on that experience very deeply. We have Joyita, who is representing Punch Lloyd and has a variety of experience both in a modern internet technology company as well as a real economy company as well. And then we have Madhu, who has managed both on the manufacturing segment of the business into the services segment of the business, and now manages both sides of the aspect from a business as well as an HR portfolio. So it would be very interesting, a mix of experience that we can draw upon on this particular topic. What we have kept here as a topic is redefining, the talent acquisition technology stack, the what and the how of it. So we wanted to go and deep down and try to understand how talent acquisition has evolved over a period of time, how it has only been from a number perspective or a number partner from a perspective of business growth, how that is taking shape of a real strategic enabler from an overall organization standpoint as it sits along with the CEO and the CFO in charting out very important strategies related to its most important asset, which is human growth, which is powering most of the modern organizations today. So how that is growing, and the tech and this function itself has transformed itself significantly so much in the last 5 to 7 years, from predominantly a manual recruitment engine to a highly automated recruitment environment, to modern day conversations around artificial intelligence, machine learning. So there is a huge amount of transformation that the talent acquisition department itself is going through, and also it is facing newer challenges as businesses try to grow to a very different level of value creation to its own customers. So it's a very interesting topic that we have in hand, a very diverse set of panels who would be able to address that. I have a very simple job. I just have 4 questions that I need to ask them, and I will pick their brains, try delving deeper into each of their experience, and try to get the best possible out of them. We are about 3:10 right now. We will do this conversation for about next 30-35 minutes, predominantly amongst all of us. And I'm hearing there's a great amount of an audience who've joined onto this particular webinar. Keep your questions ready, as Megha said, and we'll be more than happy to answer within the defined time frame as well. So without much ado, I'm going into my first question. So the first question that we are trying to address is, before even we go into the technology stack, I'm trying to break down the talent acquisition stack itself. So there are 2 components. So there is a talent acquisition stack and there is a technology stack. So we've tried dividing that 2 questions in the question into 2 parts. So my first question is to Naveen on how and what is happening to the talent acquisition stack, and if he can talk from a deep technology domain that he comes from and a multinational organization perspective as well. So the first question is to you, Naveen, and then we can go to Joyita and Madhu.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. My own experiences over multiple organizations a few things that stand out as perspectives. One clearly is that we've moved enormously from an enterprise-driven architecture that is there to which was dominated in the 2000s, to a SaaS, to a cloud-based kind of applications. And I think probably in our own lifetimes, and all panelists or whoever is there, in our own lifetimes, I think probably we'll have technology that will make many of our jobs redundant, if not people as well. Clearly, we see that that's probably the place where the technologies are going through. One standard thing, I guess, as hiring or HR as well, that we've always struggled is data. And that includes market data, that includes internal data. And I've always been fascinated to saying that we probably resemble a lot like a retail industry or a consumer industry. And yet probably as a function, we've not been as savvy as the consumer technologies that exist out there. And and data has always been something that we as a function have lagged enormously behind, in spite of something which is a very quantifiable function that exists. I think the times there used to be debates which used to be around own versus build kind of technologies, and SaaS versus many other things. And I think some of those debates are way out of the window at this point in time. And now we are very clear to saying that go after everything which is just out there. Everything is currently on a pay-per-use model, and increasingly will go into a larger pay-per-use model. Anybody out there probably even having conversations with says build is probably you're in a very old paradigm in some form. A few other things that probably are an interesting set of perspectives that are happening. One is that we've had this classic debate, which is talent, which is active passive, job boards to something else, and so on and so forth. And one of the very interesting facets in our job is to obviously find the right person, who's wherever that particular person is. And there are some phenomenal technologies that have kind of come through at this point in time in the new age, which looks at not just a static way of looking at a person, but it is looking at every part of your social profile. And I know platforms which are looking at almost about 27 different sources to combine a profile of who you are and what you are. So I think it kind of puts an interesting spin to saying that how do you engage with people like this? How do you build communities around all of these that could be potentially out there? There are some experiments currently going on in the US, and there are certain platforms that are there out in the US where actually bots are hiring you directly. There is experiments to saying that you will pair program with the bots. What you don't know is that the bot is actually learning from you as you pair program, and then it finds out to saying that these are the parts that I will hire you. So it's not a human who's hiring you. And you probably do a work packet in the new gig economy. And at the end of it, the bot probably would have learned what you had done and replaced you as well and gone to the next set of it that's there. So the traditional way in which we look at hiring, which is would be 10 years from now, be still getting a requisition, finding a person, putting them through 5 rounds of interviews, may probably be more disrupted in the next 10 years, or you can choose to as well for yourselves, than probably in the past 10 years as well. So in conclusion, I would saying that maybe we have as a function, we could probably look at the retail and the consumer industry experiences, what we also go through in the retail and consumer industry, And I think there are technologies that are probably far more evolved, and then maybe there's an opportunity for the hiring and the people function to replicate some of these as well.
Great, Naveen. So, so the first, I think he's set the ball rolling into a very a different orbit itself. So it's from traditional recruiting to gig, not about just finding yourself, but getting yourself picked into what's your best area of expertise. So, great thoughts there, Naveen. The same question to you, Joyita. If you can give the same, the question is around what all are there in the talent acquisition function today, and if you can give a feel about the real economy perspective. So, lot many of our people, of all of us talk about various technologies available, but what happens when it hits the real economy? What happens when it is experienced by a manufacturing organization where they're not supposed to work with these kind of technologies at all? They're supposed to be within a manufacturing line, and they are within that defined walls or defined timelines. So how does that change? A perspective on that would be great.
Good afternoon, everybody. In fact, most of these technologies are really to make life easy for all of us, right? And so that reality doesn't change whether you are part of a new age world or you are part of a real economy or a manufacturing setup, right? So if that is what you and I, everybody need, and this is also reflection of what we see outside, outside the office environment. It's like ease of operations. And so if we bring that whole concept into a workspace, I think, the requirements for people in my kind of industry is no different than a technology, company, so to say. The only thing is that, yes, the development is happening little slow. In comparison to a lot of the technology based companies, and that could be because of it's in many of the cases the scale of operations and the mindset of people or the tech skills of the people may need a given amount of catch up, but other than that, if you really talk about it, when we look into the hiring process, so to say, I mean, the screening process, to the whole interview scheduling, to the whole interview feedback, and onboarding, and then engaging the employees for the first 6 months to say that they are retained. There is no difference out there, to my understanding. And also now in the new concept, the employer branding has started playing so much more important. Like anybody wanting to join, even in our kind of industries, also come and say that how do you reflect in places like Glassdoor and other places? What is the impression? So we also have to really be mindful of that and catch up in case if you have not started thinking on those lines. That's what I can say.
Sure. Thank you, Joyita. I think you're emphasizing on the ease of operation. That's what manufacturing as a segment has always given to mankind. So it's a different perspective. I don't see that it's a slow adopter. I think it's a sure adopter. Only once it is sure about that this technology will work, will the manufacturing setups take it. And the most important component is the ease of operation. We should not just get lost. But thank you so very much for that particular piece. Madhu, I want to make it slightly more tougher for you. I want to flip the question on its head for you. We've been all been answering it from an HR, from a recruitment standpoint. How does business see this? I mean, you've been on the business side as well. How does the CEO or the CFO sees the whole of the talent acquisition department?
Okay. Thanks and good afternoon to all. I'll answer it from my current role perspective of a CEO. I also still now also hold the group HR head role, but I also wear this dual hat, and many times I'm able to see some of the attempts by our HR colleagues as sometimes being very superficial when I sit on the other side. Because all what the business guys want is that he needs that right person at the right time in the shortest possible time, with zero errors being done on offer letters, on comp and ben negotiations, and just get the guy quickly onboarded and get on with business. So as Joyita had told, technology is going to be an enabler for us. It should not consume your overall space of saying that this is what I have to do and be enamored by entire technology and trying to do what we like. I always keep telling very pointedly to all my HR colleagues and to myself more so, is that sometimes we get consumed to impose our own likes and dislikes on the business and saying that we want to do something in HR and we want to do this technology stuff into the business, while the business might not actually require that. And more importantly, if somebody has to go down the path of leveraging technology a lot, today we are at a very nascent level. We are using, when we talk about technology stack, we talk about various independent tools, if I can use that word very loosely, say like a LinkedIn or a Facebook or a WhatsApp hiring. I see a lot of things happening on various media sources, social media sources and other sources. But those are independent. If you're looking at what Naveen alluded to earlier, like if you're going into cutting edge, like about bots hiring and doing a lot of machine learning, algorithm driven, then as a company, as a philosophy, if you're going into that sort of a thing, depends upon whether you're doing mass hiring or discrete hiring. Because in discrete hiring, the impact of technology would be very different from when you do mass hiring. So if you're going to do 2,000 people, hire 2,000 people, you're going to hire 10,000 people, then technology can really be a catalyst. But if you're going to hire, say, about 1,000 people a year, you can still manage with some amount of technology. Yes, you will build in a lot of intelligent technology. So you might use a lot of psychometrics using a lot of technology. You might give a better candidate experience of giving them a link or giving them a link on the phone or doing some stuff and gamings and all of that. But ultimately, what is the outcome and the output expected out of business? They just want your recruitment cost to be very low, because they don't want you to blow up budgets on all of these. They just want your recruitment cost per hire to be low, get the right guy on the right time, and just get on with business. They are actually not worried about what you're doing at the back end. So in fact, I would actually say all of this matters to the HR fraternity. They should just not speak much about it. They should show the impact on the outcomes. So if you are able to leverage technology to such an extent, they should actually be surprised. Hey, how are you able to get this guy so quickly? For example, I'll give you a small example. We wanted a Microsoft Dynamics acceptor professional, and it's very difficult. That's a very niche skill. It's very difficult to get that person. One of my young team members on my team worked with the IT colleague, and he said, okay, and he got a connect through the LinkedIn, and we closed the position within a week's time. It should have normally taken about 6 months' time. Now, we don't need to tell the entire world. The fact of the matter is that we got that guy on board and very quickly got on with business. People in the business were extremely happy. Guy was very happy, and the cost per hire was actually zero. There's no cost because we got it done free through a LinkedIn connection, and we got it. So you should know what are the various technology stacks which are available, what are the various technology tools which are available. So it's not that you're going to be extremely antagonistic towards technology and say no, face-to-face will always be there for times immemorial and all of that. That's there. I mean, even today we do face-to-face. In spite of all of this, you still have a psychometric. You don't use that as a gate. You say that it is a development tool. Nobody really has the guts to actually use a psychometric as a gate. So they always supplement it with a face-to-face interview. And then they obviously use their own judgment. But I'm not going to be taking that extreme position. I say that we need to embrace technology. We need to be well ahead, be aware of what's there in the offering, but keep the business outcome in mind. Because for the business person, you should not go up with a budget saying that, okay, I need to spend 1 crore on this technology. And for what he would say is to hire 1,000 people a year. He will say, no, he will shoot on the budget. He'll say, I don't need. You please do the same stuff without the technology stack. So we need to be very, very clear on that. Cost per hire should be 0. So today we talk about technology because today literally our cost per hire, except for our, if I can call Naukri as the technology, though it's a portal, because it's digital, I'll call that, or any other portal. So that's a license fee cost. That's the cost which we have today. It's very small, maybe. But when you get into more and more into machine learning, artificial intelligence, using bots, cost will be really high. Then the question is, are you really, for which set of audience are you recruiting for? Are you recruiting for really niche where errors has to be absolutely 0? Today, businesses will tolerate errors. So if the guy is not there, depends on the social context and the country in which you operate. So if the guy is not good, 6 months probation, or maybe I'll give him a notice period of 2 months and I get him out. So I quickly cut down my mistake. So the business guys will always focus on what is my cost vis-a-vis technology and what is the cost of my errors. Or if I make a wrong judgment, okay, I quickly get on with it. So that's the concept which we need to be aware. The other one is mass versus discrete. So if you're going to hire less number of people, then still you will be able to manage with bits and pieces of technology. If you're going to hire mass number of people, then technology can really be a catalyst, not just an enabler. And more importantly, if depends on the philosophy of the organization, if you want to build in, because if you have to build in intelligence into the machines, then all of what you do, it's like digitization. I was just earlier chairing a meeting on the IT strategy. So, and this is a perk of the new job where I get to go into all the domains. So where somebody was talking about and explaining about how digitization happened in one of the cement companies. It's a manufacturing company. From gate in to gate out, as they call it in manufacturing, everything is digitized. But it took them 8 years to do it. So that's the test case. So similarly in HR, if you start out today, so then you need to be clear. So the fact is that you need to start out. You can't say, I will start out when things are all absolutely mature. Then you are completely going to be a dinosaur. So what each company will have to analyze its own life cycle and life stage where they are. And they'll have to start out somewhere. For example, if you'll have to at least take some baby steps. You can't say, no, I will never use LinkedIn. I'll never use Facebook. I'll never use WhatsApp. I'll just do my face-to-face and traditional calling for interviews. You can't do that. So you will have to keep pace. But the quantum of investments which you do needs to definitely tie in with what your business can afford. It is ultimately based on business, what business can afford, because all these technology costs you money. So
what invariably what you're talking about is straight in the face. Whatever you do has to have an element. Don't be in your own utopian world.
Exactly.
Take it from the business. Be like a sales guy, right? When sales departments go and implement new technologies, they don't talk about what technology they have invested. They talk about the fact that they have brought in a 4x increase to the top line.
Exactly. So
so use that as a.
What we need to tell is how quickly I got the guy, how much of a good person did I get into the company, and technology can always be your secret sauce. So technology should always be your secret sauce so that people don't get to know what's happening, but you are able to deliver the magic. So that's how I see it. But definitely we need to embrace technology, take your own baby steps, and depending on the life stage of your company, do the appropriate investments and keep moving ahead so that you are able to still be in the race.
Madhu, your voice is breaking up.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Am I audible?
We just lost you for about the last moment. So
I just wanted to say technology should be. Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, I will take that up in the forward questions.
Yeah.
And then we will try to cover.
Yeah.
But thanks for that insight, Madhu. Really helpful. I'm going to the next question, which predominantly now what we've understood is that how comprehensive and how complex the talent acquisition stack looks like, and it depends on company to company, what genre you're from, what's the impact that you want to create onto the business. The next question is, what all are the newer technologies that are coming up? So if we can spend some time on that particular piece. And this time I can start with Joyita. Joyita, if you can talk through us about what is happening in the applicant tracking system, or the CRM system in a recruitment perspective. And you have a great experience both in a modern new age company and an established real economy as well. So how have you seen the ATS or the CRM changing its perspective and getting adopted?
Sure. So I think the biggest point today, which we heard, is about being agile. How quickly we are able to fill in the position, and how we are able to reach out to the right candidates. They could be based anywhere across the globe today. So that becomes very important. So it's what I have seen. What is available today is right from the ease of reaching out to candidates, not just to the ones who are active seekers, but also the ones who are passively being around, or somewhere in between. So there are tools and technologies to reach out to them, depending upon the kind of sites that they're visiting, the kind of companies that they have shown interest and stuff like that. And also, in terms of the whole shortlisting process, I mean, earlier it used to be, and even in the manual process, the biggest issue is the way we are shortlisting and screening the CVs. So that process has really kind of helped out, because what technology is doing today is easing out the mundane, the routine part of the role of a recruiter, which is more standardized, and you can bring in systems into the whole process. So in that, if the usage of keywords, the kind of keywords that you're using, that helps you very, very quickly to shortlist CVs, and remove that nightmare from a recruiter's life, so to say. And what kind of shortlisting you do, I mean, there are algorithms these days which even predict for you that, hey, last time these are the kind of candidates who have been more successful in terms of the hiring, going through the hiring process for an organization, which is not just taking care of your skill requirements, but also the cultural fit, or some of the values, some of those aspects. So now that we have seen. And also the biggest help is having a common repository of all the screenings that you have done. I mean, think about it. One of the challenges that we face is that the companies which have operations across various locations, there is a possibility of the same candidate appearing in multiple places and being rejected in one place and being picked up elsewhere. I mean, and reasons not really known, because things are not really synergized. So that part of it really gets taken care of through this, and that database is available for use. And so that is something which we are seeing, which is very, very helpful. Keeping a repository of the feedback, in terms of the interview feedback and comments. I think that is one place which is coming in real handy in terms of capturing, the hiring manager's feedback. We don't need to really type in and send in the data, and so the chasing which happens with the hiring managers can be minimized hugely, because you can just record your feedback and inputs, and there's a voice, and which gets captured into a data form, and you can capture it. So all of these are available. Companies are making use of it, and that is all adding up to speed of hiring, improving the quality and efficiency in that sense, cost effective, because the more and more you are using the video part of the interview process, you are able to reach out to candidates across the globe at a much faster pace. You are able to capture everything live in that sense, and at a cost effective manner, without having travel involved. So that is happening. There are companies who are gradually moving towards that, And that is the best part. That's the most exciting part of it. The ease of managing the whole thing. And then subsequently, like you have to schedule the interviews, the whole data management of that huge repository. That's the fun part of it.
Sure. Naveen, I go to you next. And if you can just focus predominantly, and you've done that multiple times in your career, about sourcing, source aggregation, and reaching out to the ultimate person. I mean, what can you do if you don't have to go through 10 different profiles to select one? But if you can be sure shot that I give you three, you can pick one, and at the same time have that pace, which the business demands, and it can just be like just in time. So focus on sourcing, source aggregation, and if you can throw some light on that.
So I think, I mean, probably all three of us have one starting common point, and Madhu probably amplified this quite a bit, that technology needs to be invisible. That's a given. Two that is there is that it needs to add efficiency. I would probably say that it will also need to add a lot more effectiveness to the process. It's not just sometimes about time, but it's also about trying to find the right person. I think in our Joy also brought this up some time back to say that the role of quintessential recruiter has today become part of a brand manager, as well as, I mean, the traditional sourcing that kind of happened. The way we at least see it is that there are probably three parts to it. One is how does the whole brand community and the upstream candidate engagement part of it happens. In the traditional days, I mean, when no technology existed, then advertisements happened on newspapers and classifieds. And the power of a recruiter was the power of his or her Rolodex. Today, that Rolodex is multiplied, probably 100 times, but it still depends on how well are you engaged and connected to each individual person. We find that that quality that is there of somewhere where you're able to harness multiple platforms available on multiple platforms, engage with communities, is a key aspect to a recruiter. Source is again something, I mean, the era of job boards to the era of finding the right kind of candidates. I mean, I think there are many organizations which even find LinkedIn to be a little bit of a tool of yesterday. And today, probably there are a lot more scraping tools that are out there which provide you a complete view of the best match. We've done a lot of work over time and often use AI and others in slips. But again, there are very decent, intelligent applications out there which tell you saying that basis past, a bit like what Joy mentioned, past trends, past many other aspects. These are the best ways in which you can, I mean, this is the best fit. It's a bit like the example that Madhu mentioned, but quick, it's perfect, it's not showing anything. There's a lot of intelligence that kind of comes into it. Jobs that traditionally a recruiter also probably did, which is the power of the job was how well did I screen and how well do I represent, also seems to be taken over by technology platforms, because the role of the source and screen is blending, and that's how a lot of the technologies out there are somewhere trying to blend this and use this as a offering. A couple of other things that are there are one myth, at least that I have, and which is a bit contra to what Madhu was mentioning, was that the cost of technology has actually dropped enormously. I mean, in fact, today most of the technologies are almost free. So usage of technology anymore is not a dollar conversation, but I do agree to say saying that it is an invisible conversation.
Yeah.
It's not at all an investment conversation. I mean, I'd fall off my chair if somebody said I need to invest $100,000 in hiring. nothing out there for you to buy. Everything is in pennies and dollars. And I think that the reason for using some of these is probably also the new age workforce that we want to get to, which is a lot of the platforms that you were talking about is where the new age workforce is. They want to engage you in that particular conversation. An interesting example that both of them bought are technology jobs. They may be in agencies or oil and gas or motor business or wherever, but both of the examples seem to be a technology role and not I want a motorcycle specialist or somebody else. And interestingly, I mean, Satya Nadella said this a couple of weeks back in a Microsoft conference, saying that the number of people required, technology people required in non-technology companies is actually growing twice faster than in technology companies. So, and those people sit on food and savvy technology communities, and it's very important to engage them through those.
Just one follow-through question, Naveen, for you, and then Madhu, I will get to you. How is this new thing, which is the GDPR, changing all of this sourcing thing? Do you think there is risk involved there? The biggest search company in the world has a legal case against them for about $9 billion, and we are talking about searching them. So how is that going to change? Any quick thoughts?
I think, I mean, we had this conversation before. I guess we are also trying to get our arms around this. The biggest thing that every company tried to pride itself was, I have a database of X number of people and so on. And I think that concept by itself will vanish. For us, we need to probably learn, and it's pretty obvious that there's a good chance that the Sri Krishna panel also in India will follow the GDPR side rather than the other way around. So India will also have data privacy rules which are very much Europe-centric rather than US-centric. Means that consent-based is something that we need to learn. We don't do much of that. Two is storage is something that resume is hanging around on people to extend. A lot of those habits will probably change and manage. And a bad recruiter is a bit of or bad practice of a recruiter becomes a liability.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Naveen. Madhu, this question is to you, and I think, and that's what I said, I will come back to you. How do you differentiate from a technology side, from a mass recruiting perspective to a class recruiting perspective? So, and you've been there on the manufacturing side and on the services side. On one end, you would have done very class recruiting, combination of technology experience and stuff like that. And on the other end, on services, which are like quick moving and distributed operations around across the length and breadth of the country. So do you want to spend some time on the technology piece that are getting used in these two sectors, mass hiring and class hiring?
Definitely, when you're looking at large-scale hiring, technology is definitely a great catalyst and an enabler, because one is you're able to get a large pool of a universe of people from where you're able to run your own shortlisting formulas, and then you get down to a pool of candidates whom you can look at. So that is definitely an obvious thing. When it comes to hiring very senior leadership profiles for looking at businesses, there are a lot of other things which we look at. And I think there's also one of the questions which had come up. I'd look at it. Typically, the technology usage there would be limited to trying out some sort of testing or tests and multiple peer interviews, which is coming up. So the entire selection process also is going through a bit of a change. It is not based on hierarchical interview levels, especially when we have done some leadership intake. We have done peer interviews. They go and meet, or I would call it as peer discussions, where they go and meet up with people whom they are going to work with. There's a slight change. So all of this still even today. Maybe in the future it would change, and that's the reason why I always hold my cards close to the chest. We need to be in line with technology, but as it exists today, people still want to see the person in flesh and blood, talk, do their own subjective judgments, and then they regroup and brief. Now, as Joyita had said, I heard a recent example. Amazon, for example, has this same system. They have some 8 or 9 rounds of interviews for a person, but it's not actually typical rounds. They actually have 9 meeting points or meeting discussion points where each of them enter their comments on the system, and it's recorded, or it's on by based on voice or on by writing. So the interviewer no longer does all this chasing around and all that. And incidentally, I started my career as a recruiter way back in '95, and I know the amount of pain which one goes through getting interview comments done. So when it comes to large scale hiring, that would be a seemingly impossible task. You're going to hire some 1,000 people. I don't think so. You're looking at interview comments of 1,000 people. So there, technology is really going to be a big thing. And once you're going to use a bit of piece of technology for one part of the organization, it doesn't make sense to be on a very different footing. So I think the answer to your question would be is, what is your organization predominantly driven by? So if it's going to be large scale hiring, if it's going to be telecom, retail, where there's a huge churn, services, where there's going to be huge churn, it's better that you invest in technology and start moving ahead in that. Maybe you might not be getting the impact of it right now, but at some point of time, you would get rich database, like what Joyita had said. You would have interview comments. You would be able to train your people to become line managers, to become better interviewers, better selectors. So all of that can be built in using this. So it depends on how well you utilize and leverage that technology, apart from just recruitment, but for overall leadership capability development within your own organization using this piece. So you can draw a lot of lessons from all of that. So that's where I would say large scale hiring enables that to happen. And it's sooner or later a matter of time when all organizations will by default embrace technology. The other people, when they do the large scale, only very discrete, small set of hiring, maybe they can postpone or delay the investments in technology to that extent. They may not feel the need of it, a pressing need of it. But whether they can absolutely avoid it, I do not think so. They cannot avoid it. Maybe they can delay it. This would be the perspective between, say, if you look at leadership, mass in class, if you, as you would put it, that's the one.
Sure, sounds good. I'm just in the interest of time. There are a lot of questions that we're getting from from the audience. So keep it coming. But in the interest of time, I'll pick one of them, and I will reduce one of my questions so that we can make it more engaging. One last question from my side, because that was the second element, the third element of our conversation. How do we go about implementing, bringing in this change? We heard Madhu already talking about, that when you bring in these kind of transformational changes, it can't happen today or tomorrow. You will have to have a gestation period, what you can go about doing that. So Madhu, if you can, again, drawing through from your manufacturing and services experience, how do you bring in the best combination while you're changing this process? So there are a lot of people in the audience who are, first level talent acquisition managers who will be facing this daunting task of somebody's just told them that, just go and change the technology stack. But they will be like running helter-skelter and changing. What do I bring that change? How do I define that investment? So in the interest of time, a quick 2 minutes from you on how to select the best combination, while you're deciding to change the technology stack. And you can focus on manufacturing and services as your example.
Yeah. I would, the key secret here would be is agility, as Joyita had alluded. When you're first keeping the businesses busy on what they like and you give them what they want, they would give you more time to really figure out your own way of what you're doing. So they don't really come and bother you around saying that what is it that you're doing. That is very, one thing is speed, agility. Second is cost. So always look for what is available in the market. There's a lot of free things which are available in the market. So as a starter, as a one who is taking baby steps into technology stack, always make use of what is there in the ecosystem. Don't try to go in and try to come in with a huge bill or an investment, because that is going to be a big turnoff, because you're not yet proved the business about what is it that you're going to offer them. So once you start telling them that, here, this is what the technology can do to you, they'll be wondering, I'll say, how did you do this? This is what I did. But you can actually do much more if I get into this technology. I can. So you will have to show them data points, show businesses data points. Then the businesses will be more willing to invest. So if you go and tell a sales guy that your churn is this much, 40% attrition or 35% attrition, which is in the service industry, which is very typical. I mean, a very troublesome to the service industry, you would have 35% attrition. But then the key is, how fast do you fill in the bucket? Obviously, engagement, handholding, retention, and all that will be part of any organization, and that's a given. But still, you would have a very high levels of attrition. If you are able to counter that through speed and then showcase that because of technology, I'm able to get these guys, then the mood to invest would be that much more, because they would see the business value in it, and then that comes in easily. I think that's, so we need to show them data points, use speed, use the ecosystem, get it free, and then go on to the premium or the pay models. And because definitely nothing is going to come free eternally. There will be a cost at some point of time. You will have to get them hooked on to this.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Sure. Naveen, you've not that done once, you've done that multiple times. But distinctly, if you can call from an Indian IT perspective and from an MNC perspective, if you're a budding recruitment leader in an Indian IT house vis-a-vis an MNC, how will you go about taking your chances to bring that transformation in?
The first thing is that I think we assume that a transformation is only technology. The biggest, I think, learning for us, since we are in that business, is that a transformation in general is a 2 to 3 year lifetime, in which technology is a component. We find that two places where typically the things break. One is clearly that the structure remains the same even after the any technology kind of comes through. And this is, I think, a generic learning for anybody who goes through any kind of a transformation piece that is there. So the person who's may not be the biggest evangelist, or the person who doesn't understand it still continues to be the biggest boss, and the person who runs this probably is not the has the share of voice in the system. The second big place we find most places where adoption breaks is the culture. Right? So, I mean, when I used to grow up and emails were just coming in, and if your boss had your secretary print an email and write it for you on the side and so on, that culture breaks it, right? So I think the culture of how well do you want this transformation to go through overall, be it on structure, process, skills, participation, those kind of things. That is where we find in the new age companies, they start with a culture, they start with a different structure, and hence technology becomes like baby to bathwater.
Perfect. Joyita, if you can focus on from a startup. So I think India is going through any which way a huge amount of transformation in itself, as we have so many startups, in our community, and you've worked with one of the budding ones. So if you can just, and there is a very limited amount of cash that you have. There is a huge amount of, business stake that is involved in it. So how did you go about doing that?
Fortunately, the startup was part of a very big global group, so we didn't have to start from scratch. We had access to some of the existing systems, but during some of our discussions, what we saw is that it is not very expensive, so to say. So in many of these situations, a basic database application, if you have, most of these can, kind of ride on them. They are like a lot of these plug and play models which are available today in terms of the technology stack. So one can get started with something very small, because the best way to, kind of bring in the money is to address a problem statement. So identify a few of the problem statement, which could be, some specific niche skill hiring related stuff, where, you need to have access to a pool of people who are available, or for that matter, volumes to be handled. And of course, time is essence. In new age, it just multiplies, 10 times more. So look into the problem statement, identify some of the solutions. There is a plethora of solutions which are available. I think, the People Matters, the Tech Summit, all of them are there, having their counters and talking about it. I think you have a lot of options which are available, and not all of them are very expensive. So look at what you need, start with small stuff, show some value so that you can go and ask for more. I think that worked in my previous organization.
Perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. We are almost at the fag end of it. 4 minutes remaining. From a 4 o'clock stop time, we have already have a lot of questions. I also had one question which is pending on my side, but let me give it, to the audience. I think we're getting some very amazing questions here. So one such question is, once AI takes over, how it's gonna impact the recruitment industry? I'm very perturbed with the fact that AI can take over, but it's a good question. But so, what is the future? Naveen, you want to go first on that one?
Sure. I think, I mean, it has to be prediction based. The biggest assumption that is there is that AI will take over at least more than 50% of jobs now in the next 10 years. So there is a time capsule as well to it.
Will recruiters also have to fear that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think a lot of the jobs that we do, if they are repetitive, or if they are even if they are even algorithmic in any form, will be much effectively done by various AI platforms. I don't think we are insulated in any form away from the other part of the workforce. So
Got it.
I think everybody will.
Everybody has to move up the value chain. That from. I'm taking one more question here. I think we can go, which is on how do we screen for culture fitment and work values? Are there any specific tests or tools for this? That's a very specific question. Joyita, you want to pick that up?
See, in fact, when you're doing a search thing, they look for keywords. So in case, if you have fitted in, your CV with that, but I think some of those things can, it becomes a little bit more difficult. The skill part of it definitely is far more easier from a search, keyword point of view. But the values part of it, unless it is very, very specified in your job description or somewhere, and then, most of the time we know candidates tweak their CVs to, apply for a particular position, then it will catch in terms of a basic, database screening kind of.
Perfect. Just one addition to that, I think whoever has it's a very great question. And we've been working with few partners of late. So the era of doing a psychometric assessment through a questionnaire, I think that is going to end. People are using multiple mediums. People are using elements like color schemes. So if you have 10 random photos that you have uploaded on Facebook, there are pixels which are getting amplified, and they're truly getting tested, where they can give you a psychometric profiling based output. So just 10 random pictures from Facebook, and you have an output. How does, how the personality matches out, whether it's a complementary personality and stuff like that. So that's where the technology is going towards to. I'm told the like of music. So the sound analysis as well will also be able to tell you what kind of psychometric outputs that one can get through. One last question that I'm picking up. Madhu, this is for you, though you definitely amplified it in the very first answer, but I think people want to know it. How can we make sure that recruitment is not a support function? how is it a business enabler? So what do you need to do? You've seen that transformation yourself from the time when you used to say this to the time now you're hearing this. So your answer on this would be really helpful.
Yeah, I would just say it is very simple. You'll have to be fast and low cost, and talk very less about what you do, but just give them the outcome. Then you get you're seen more, and you need to shift. HR has a fantastic opportunity to be the second to the CEO and the CEO itself. This has been my experience. There's many people think, and in India, it is very this thing that the CFO always becomes the CEO very easily. But in fact, especially in a services setup, the CHRO has the best shot at becoming the CEO, because it's very simple. So you move up the value chain, as you said, go on with the business, understand what is their need, empathize with them, but do all the intelligence. That doesn't mean that we be reckless in process, that you're taking shortcuts, that you don't respect technology, that you don't respect the HR principles. Nothing of that sort. You do all of that. I always tell my team, it's like the CPU, that small light which is flickering. It just keeps on running at the back. Nobody notices it, but that's the engine. And that's what is about core HR. So you just, only the business people will only consider you as an enabler only when you deliver them fast and at lowest cost, good quality, obviously all of this. And that's what they want. And you get there by using all of this. You use AI, you use technology stack, you use all of that. Talk very less about it, talk more of business. Then you'll be considered as an enabler.
Perfect. I think it's a very simple answer. How do I get 90%? Study 20 hours a day, sleep less, eat less, keep focusing, and you can do it. But I think it's pretty much there. An element of smartness, if you're able to bring in and convince business, I think that's the added element that you are talking about. Work in the background, but create a mechanism of how you can go and talk to the customer by at the same time giving you that at the element of it
I'll give a small, just sorry to interrupt, just give a small example. Sometimes your CEO might say, I don't know, I don't require that psychometric, or I don't require the results. That's where you need to step in and say, please use this. This is important. You have to juxtapose your judgment with something which is coming out of a very proven, validated instrument. So please use it. So there you don't forsake your HR responsibility. Don't just give it up. Yeah. And then the balance is very good, but it's very difficult to do. Easy to say, but you need to do that. And then it takes you on to the higher level.
Perfect. Sounds good. You've been a great panel. Thank you so very much. We're at 4:03. We would have to close it. Just three final sign-off statements before I hand it over to Megha. I think, and what we predominantly discussed, tech is ubiquitous. That's what I heard from everyone. Don't just talk about technology, show outcomes. That's the first priority. The second one is empathize with business. Don't try copy pasting, because that's gone. That's not going to happen. So empathize with business, then design your TA function, and then figure out what kind of technology stacks you want to bring along. And the last thing I think, and which is a very welcome change, what I heard from all the panels together, and we did not discuss about this at all, is that give it time. Time is a factor. I mean, we understand that we all need the best possible talent in the lowest possible time, but don't bring that as a conversation into your transformation story. Have your midterm and long-term plans co-created and go as deep as possible as your short-term plans, because it's important to sustain this for the next 2 years or 3 years kind of a time frame. So that's what it's a great learning experience for me. Thank you all the panel members. It's been an awesome session talking to you, and I'm signing off. Megha, back to you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. And I hope all of you enjoyed this conversation. Personally, I just loved the conversation. It was truly engaging. So thank you so much, Joyita, Kiran, Madhu, Naveen, for bringing in your experience and making this conversation very rich for our audience. And I would also like to thank our partner, People Strong, for helping us put this together. So thank you so much, the team at People Strong as well. And as always, thank you, each one of you, for being such an enthusiastic audience. There were so many questions still left unanswered, and we'll try our level best to send the questions to the panel so that if possible, we can take some offline answers. But thank you so much for taking out time and being glued onto this conversation. There are many more conversations that are coming under our campaign called HR Tech That Matters. So please do follow the campaign. It's there on the People Matters website as well. So hope to see you getting engaged with us in many more such conversations. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to the closure of this discussion. Please do not forget to share your feedback on the survey link that we've shared with you. Your feedback always helps us improve. So please do share. And thank you so much and have a great evening ahead.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.